Hey everyone. So I have decided to come on here and talk about this book that I'm completely obsessed with. It is called The Four Agreements. And the reason I have decided to do this was because I was recently speaking with a client of mine and I was giving her some strategies and some things to work through. And she said, everything you're saying is reminding me of a book that I read. And so she asked me if I had heard of the book, and I said, no, I haven't, but I'm definitely going to get it. So, long story short, I ordered the book, and if you know me, you will know that I'm not an avid reader. I don't like reading a lot for pleasure, and it's probably because I have had to read so many textbooks that now when I think of books, I'm like, ugh. So I just said, okay, it's an easy read. It's kind of, small. The print is big for my blind self. And so I started reading it and I instantly was like drawn in. So the more I'm reading it, when I got past the introduction and I got into the first agreement, when you have this moment and your mouth is just open, or you just have all of these aha moments? Well, that was happening to me. And also, if you know me, when that happens to me, I want to share it with everybody. So I feel that this book has such a powerful message about ourselves and how we treat each other and how kind or actually unkind we are to ourselves and where that comes from. And so I feel like, especially in my practice, that many of my clients come to me and they are, they're lost in their way. They kind of don't know where things came from, where they started. And so until we start, peeling back things and kind of pinpointing without really kind of going too far back. So as I was reading this book, I was like, oh my gosh, I do these things. Like I discuss these things. And how did I not know about this book? So this book came out in 1997. So it came out the year my first daughter was born. So already special to me. Um, it is written by, the first book is written by, or I'm sorry, the first book is The Four Agreements, and it's the Wisdom book. And it's by Don Miguel Ruiz. So what I have decided to do was I'm not going to read the very, very beginning, but I am going to read chapter one. So everything else before that is interesting, but that's not where I'm going to start. Um, and the reason I'm doing this is because I want to kind of take the components from this book and there's things that you may take out of it and there are things that you may say, okay, maybe not me, or like I'm going to put my spin on this or my thought on this. So that's kind of what I have done, and I want to break this book down in a psychological perspective because I really feel like this is a good tool and this is one of those must have books. And again, there's certain things that he says, um, you know, religiously, spiritually, that you may agree with, you may disagree with, but my angle is looking at it from a psychological lens. So I really hope that you take this journey with me and you enjoy what it has to say, and maybe you can take some of these words and have your own kind of aha moment or revelation. So I want to get started with chapter one, which is called the domestication and the dream of the planet. So when it first starts off, it kind of sounds a little trippy. So just don't stop, go with me. I promise I'm going to take you on this magical journey of self-discovery. And I hope that you really do get into it. Okay, so here, let's now start with kind of the part you might be like, wait, what is happening? All right. So what you are seeing and hearing right now is nothing but a dream. You are dreaming right now in this moment. You are dreaming with the brain awake. Dreaming is the main function of the mind, and the mind dreams 24 hours a day. It dreams when the brain is awake, and it dreams when the brain is asleep. The difference is that, hold on. The difference is that when the brain is awake, there is a material frame that makes us perceive things in a linear way. When we go to sleep, we do not have the frame, and the dream has the tendency to change constantly. Humans are dreaming all the time. Before we were born, the humans before us created a big outside dream that we will call society's dream or the dream of the planet. Now, as I'm reading this, it may seem a little mystical, a little mythical, whatever. So just continue to kind of go with me because it gets past this into like a deeper meaning. All right, the dream of the planet is the collective dream of billions of smaller personal dreams, which together create a dream of a family, a dream of community, a dream of a city, a dream of a country, and finally a dream of the whole humanity. The dream of the planet includes all of society's rules, its beliefs, its laws, its religions, its different cultures and ways to be, its government, schools, social events, and holidays. We are born with the capacity to learn how to dream, and the humans who lived before us teach us how to dream the way society dreams. The outside dream has so many rules that when a new human is born, we hook the child's attention and introduce these rules into his or her mind. The outside dream uses mom and dad, the schools, and religion to teach us how to dream. So basically, what I have taken from this in the beginning, I'm like, wait, what is happening? And I realized as I read a little further that it's now setting us up for us being kind of a blank slate in this world, and how our parents and how the people around us shaped us. So let's continue the journey. All right, attention is the ability we have to discriminate and to focus only on that which we want to perceive. We can perceive millions of things simultaneously, but using our attention, we can hold whatever we want to perceive in the foreground of our mind. The adults around us hooked our attention and put information into our minds through repetition. That is the way we learned everything we know. By using our attention, we learned a whole reality, a whole dream. We learned how to behave in society, what to believe and what not to believe, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, what is good and what is bad, what is beautiful and what is ugly, what is right and what is wrong. It was all there already, all that knowledge, all those rules and concepts about how to behave in the world. When you were in school, you sat in a little chair and put your attention on what the teacher was teaching you. When you went to church, you put your attention on what the priest or minister was telling you if you went to church. It is the same dynamic with mom and dad, brothers and sisters. They were all trying to hook your attention. We also learn to hook the attention of other humans. And we develop a need for attention, which can become very competitive. Children compete for the attention of their parents, their teachers, and friends. Look at me. Look at what I'm doing. Hey, I'm here. The need for attention becomes very strong and continues into adulthood. Now, what I have found really striking about this, now, this is me breaking it down just a little bit. When the book says, look at me, look at what I'm doing, hey, I'm here. This tells me that, there is this sense of you may have felt ignored, right? Maybe you have siblings and one sibling gets more attention. I know that I have been accused of favoring one child over another multiple times. And so as a parent, I'm sitting here going, oh, okay, let me dig this a little deeper. And what happens is we are already starting to be shaped. And if we don't pay attention to our words and to what we're doing and what we're saying. Before you know it, you are an adult, but you're really still in a child's mind because you haven't learned really or were taught the proper tools to have everything in balance. So that kind of struck me. All right, the outside dream hooks our attention and teaches us what to believe, beginning with the language that we speak. Language is the code for understanding and communication between humans. Every letter, every word in each language is an agreement. We call this a page in the book. The word page is an agreement that we understand. Once we understand the code, our attention is hooked and the energy is transferred from one person to another. It was not your choice to speak English. You didn't choose your religion or your moral values. They were already there before you were born. We never had the opportunity to choose what to believe or what not to believe. We never chose even the smallest of these agreements. We didn't even choose our own name. As children, we didn't have the opportunity to choose our beliefs, but we agreed with the information that was passed to us from the dream of the planet via other humans. The only way to store information is by agreement. Now, mind you, agreement is really the theme of this whole book. Now, what does agreement mean to you? That's the thing we'll break down. The outside dream may hook our attention, but if we don't agree, we don't store that information. As soon as we agree, we believe it, and this is called faith. To have faith is to believe unconditionally. Now, this is where I'm going to kind of pause for a second and talk about that, because if you're listening to this in a perspective of faith and religion, you may interpret this differently than someone that does not interpret this, religiously or spiritually or their own spiritual sense. So when I read these words, I want you to take it for what it is for you, and not that this is a matter of fact, one size fits all type of thing. All right. Okay, now where was I at? Okay, so found it. All right, so that's how we learn as children. Children believe everything adults say. We agree with them, and our faith is so strong that the belief system controls our whole dream of life. We didn't choose these beliefs, and we may have rebelled against them, but we were not strong enough to win the rebellion, especially as children, right? All right, so the result is surrender to the beliefs with our agreement. Now, mind you, what is the agreement? The agreement is what our parents have instilled in us, what our parents have told us. The belief that they have given us have become our own. All right, I call this process the domestication of humans. And through the domestication, we learn how to live and how to dream. In human domestication, the information from the outside dream is conveyed to the inside dream, creating our whole belief system. First, the child is taught the names of things: mom, dad, milk, bottle. Day by day, at home, at school, at church, and from television, we are told how to live, what kind of behavior is acceptable. The outside dream teaches us how to be human. We have a whole concept of what a woman is and what a man is. And we also learn to judge. We judge ourselves, judge other people, judge the neighbors. Children are domesticated the same way that we domesticate a dog, a cat, or any other animal. And it's really crazy when you just sit back and you say that again. Children are domesticated the same way that we domesticate a dog, a cat, or any other animal. And you can feel like, I'm not an animal, but in a sense, we are. So in order to teach a dog, we punish the dog and we give it rewards. That's operant conditioning. All right, so that's a psychological term there. We train our children, whom we love so much, the same that we train our domesticated animal. with a system of punishment and reward. So really, like, think about that. We are told, you're a good boy, you're a good girl, when we do what mom and dad want us to do. When we don't, we are a bad girl or a bad boy. When we went against the rules, we were punished. When we went along with the rules, we were rewarded. Now, does that mean all cases are the same? No. We're just talking universally. So when you did what was wrong, you may have gotten punished, and everybody's punishment is different, right? And when you did something that was, correct, let's say, a lot of parents do reward, right? Because it's that, hey, if I keep rewarding this behavior, then good things are going to keep happening. Now, mind you, not everyone is rewarded, but this is just kind of the concept, the idea. All right, we were punished many times a day, and we were rewarded many times a day. Soon we became afraid of being punished and also afraid of not receiving the reward. The reward is the attention that we got from our parents or from other people like siblings, teachers, and friends. We soon develop a need to hook other people's attention in order to get the reward. So, do you see how it kind of sets up from the very beginning, right? You do well, you get a reward or you get attention, and we crave that attention. We want that attention. Sometimes even negative attention. But here we are, we're setting up for the agreements. All right, the reward feels good, and we keep doing what others want us to do in order to get that reward. With that fear of being punished and that fear of not getting the reward, we start pretending to be what we are not, just to please others, just to be good enough for someone else. I mean, think about that. You are already starting in that smaller mindset, that smaller brain, that we pretend. That was a key word and something I highlighted immediately. We start pretending. We start being someone we're not. So we try to please mom and dad. We try to please the teachers at school. We try to please the church. And so we start acting. So for those of you that wanted to become an actor, guess what? You were already doing it. All right. We pretend to be what we are not because we are afraid of being rejected. Another key word, rejection. The fear of being rejected becomes the fear of not being good enough. Eventually, we become someone that we are not. We become a copy of mama's beliefs, daddy's beliefs, society's beliefs, and religion's beliefs. All our normal tendencies are lost in the process of domestication. And when we are old enough for our mind to understand, we learn the word no. The adults say, don't do this, don't do that. We rebel and say no. We rebel because we are defending our freedom. We want to be ourselves, but we are very little, and the adults are big and strong. After a certain time, we are afraid because we know that every time we do something wrong, we are going to be punished. And I felt that that was like really eye-opening for me because as I look back on my childhood, I was a rebel. And I was a rebel because I was told that don't do this, don't do that, instead of being spoken to and taught. Now, mind you, I love my parents. God rest their souls. I would not have picked different parents. I'm very grateful that I had them. But when I look back on how they parented me, obviously no one is perfect, right? I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. No one is perfect. But when I look at how I was parented, I thought, wow, had I been talked to through a different lens, maybe I would have made different choices, right? And I have no regrets. But it's just eye-opening that if you can learn something when you're younger and you can kind of change the course of history a little bit, change the course of your agreement, where it's your agreement, then maybe your children will not grow up with that sense of like how I felt, how I know my parents felt, how their parents felt. So it's psychologically, it's breaking that cycle. So I felt that was very worth the mention. All right, the domestication is so strong that at a certain point in our lives, we no longer need anyone to domesticate us. We don't need mom or dad, the school or the church to domesticate us. We are so well trained that we are our own domesticator. We are an auto-domesticated animal. We can now domesticate ourselves according to the same belief system we were given and using the same system of punishment and reward. We punish ourselves when we don't follow the rules according to our belief system. We reward ourselves when we are the good boy or good girl. The belief system is like a book of law that rules our mind. Without question, whatever it is, that book of law is our truth. And mind you, I am saying our truth, like the book states, because what your truth is going to be someone else's truth. And when we're talking about religion or spirituality, everybody has different belief systems. So I want you to kind of go with that frame of thought. All right, we base all of our judgments according to the book of law, even if these judgments go against our own inner nature. Even moral laws like the Ten Commandments are programmed into our mind in the process of domestication. One by one, all these agreements go into the book of law, and these agreements rule our dream. There is something in our minds that judges everybody and everything, including the weather, the dog, the cat, everything. The inner judge uses what is in our book of law to judge everything we do and don't do, everything we think and don't think, and everything we feel and don't feel. Everything lives under the tyranny of this judge. Every time we do something that goes against the book of law, the judge says we are guilty. We need to be punished. We should be ashamed. This happens many times a day, day after day, for all the years of our lives. Now just imagine that. Let's just stop for a moment and imagine if we're being punished, right? And then we're punishing ourselves. It's like it sets that tone. It goes into our brain. It stays in our brain, and that becomes our norm. All right. There's another part of us that receives the judgments, and this part is called the victim. The victim carries the blame, the guilt, and the shame. I deal with a lot of that with clients. You know, the two biggest kind of themes in my practice are guilt and shame. That's the reason a lot of times people go into counseling or go into therapy. It's they feel the sense of guilt, the sense of shame about something, and they feel bad and they want to work through that. And when we start to break things down about not feeling shame or guilt and what that looks like, that's when growth starts to happen and change happens. All right, so it is the part of us that says, poor me, I'm not good enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not worthy of love, or me. The big judge agrees and says, yes, you are not good enough. And this is all based on a belief system that we never chose to believe. These beliefs are so strong that even years later, when we are exposed to new concepts and try to make our own decisions, we find that these beliefs still control our lives. Whatever goes against the book of law will make you feel a funny sensation in your solar plexus, and it's called fear. Fear is a dangerous place to live. Breaking the rules in the book of law opens your emotional wounds, and your reaction is to create emotional poison. Because everything that is in the book of law has to be true. Anything that challenges what you believe is going to make you feel unsafe. Even if the book of law is wrong, it makes you feel safe. Think about that. Like, really stop and think about those words. All right, that is why we need a great deal of courage to challenge our own beliefs. Because even if we know we didn't choose all these beliefs, it is also true that we agreed to all of them. The agreement is so strong that even if we understand the concept of it not being true, we feel the blame, the guilt, and the shame that occur if we go against these rules. When I read that, I was like, whoa, whoa. This is a big book now. I suggest to all of my clients. All right, so just as the government has a book of laws that rule the society's dream, our belief system is the book of law that rules our personal dream. All these laws exist in our mind, we believe them, and the judge inside us bases everything on these rules. The judge decrees, and the victim suffers the guilt and punishment. But who says there is justice in this dream? Now, this is where I just posted. This was the next line of the book. True justice is paying only once for each mistake. So if you make 10 mistakes, right? Whatever. You pay for each mistake, right? So true justice is paying only once for each mistake. True injustice is paying more than once for each mistake. So if you ever had, and it goes into it in the book, you ever feel like I did something wrong, but I keep paying for it over and over and over again, right? When is this going to stop? When am I going to stop paying for this? And you have to ask yourself, one, did you make amends with that? Could that be the reason that you feel like you keep paying for the same mistakes, right? So it really is a personal thing that you can say anything to anyone. You can justify anything. Someone can justify anything to you. I've had that in my own personal life where you feel wronged and all you want is some validation. All you want is to hear, I messed up. I messed up. Let me take ownership for it. And then maybe forgiveness can come. And then that doesn't happen. And then you're stuck with that. You're stuck with all I wanted was an apology. All I wanted was an explanation. But unfortunately, you don't always get that. So you're left with your own self to say, okay, I have to forgive the person. Doesn't mean I need to be in their life, but I need to forgive them in order for me to move through this, for me to be able to not keep punishing the person because they don't know or they don't accept. That doesn't have to be my belief system. That was something I struggled with big time when I felt very wronged by somebody. And I just felt like, just apologize, just mean it. Just own up to it. And when you don't get that, it's frustrating. So think about that. All right, so how many times do we pay for one mistake? The answer is thousands of times. The human is the only animal on earth that pays 1,000 times for the same mistake. The rest of the animals pay once for every mistake they make. But not us. We have a powerful memory. We make a mistake, we judge ourselves. We find ourselves guilty and we punish ourselves. If justice exists, then that was enough. We don't need to do it again. But every time we remember, we judge ourselves again. We are guilty again, and we punish ourselves again and again and again. If we have a wife or husband, he or she also reminds us of the mistake. So we can judge ourselves again, punish ourselves again, and find ourselves guilty again. Is that fair? Ask yourself that. I want to keep this under 30 minutes, so I'm going to stop there. But what I am going to ask you to do is really think and reflect on that. Because I do know, and I know from personal experience and from the things where I've judged or things I've said, but if we really dig deeper into this, where it says if we have a wife or husband, that also reminds us that we did this. Ask yourself, did I own up to my mistake though? Did I come out and say these things? Is there a reason why they keep bringing it up over and over again? And I bet a lot of it is validation. It has to do with being heard, being understood, being, you being mindful about what is my part? What did I do? What did I not do? And how can I make this better? Not only for them, but for me, because at the end of the day, you have to live with you 24/7. So I hope you have enjoyed this part of it. I am nowhere near done, but I'm going to give you a break and we're going to continue on in the next video. All right, peace.